The road to Indy has finally begun for the 2025 season, and former Red Bull Junior and F1 reject Dennis Hauger has done everything we had hoped for and a little extra during his North American racing debut. Hello and welcome, fellow motorsports fans. Not only is it time to finally talk about American racing for a change, we have also had the title deciders in the Middle East, the Formula Winter Series, and some karting to get through, so let's get straight to it. The F4 Middle East may have had no big title battle to speak of, but it did throw a curveball in the battle for P2, with Alex Powell coming in big to steal the spot from Prema ace Kean Nakamura Berta, mostly thanks to an exceptional first lap in the reverse grid race. But of course, context is king, and we cannot ignore that this also puts RSGP 1-2. The team has pretty much outgunned Prema all season, as can be seen by the mental amount of wins between the pair, winning 9 out of 10 non-reverse grid races. I would expect the power dynamic to be flipped on its head come the European season. Salim Anna comfortably marched to the rookie title despite a bit of a struggle weekend to end the campaign. Hands down the most impressive newcomer. I do want to mention that Cheech and Roy did at least keep him honest on track though, and put up a solid fight himself, even if I haven't mentioned him so far because his name is a little difficult to pronounce for stupid Western tongues. Last but not least, a quick spotlight on the two Yas Heat Academy boys, August Raber and Adam Alessandro. Both produced quite the impressive season. In Raber's case, something I definitely did not see coming even after his maiden reverse grid win. Adam Alessandro did lose the battle in the standings in heartbreaking fashion, dominating the first race this weekend to take his maiden win on the road, only for disqualification to ruin that result and due to grid position subsequently the rest of the weekend. Either way, he is looking like the sort of guy who will find himself at the sharp end of his European campaign this year, I think. In the Formula Regional Middle East, Freddie Slater tried his very best to keep the title dream alive until contact with Evan Gilter essentially ended that dream in the first race of the week. Gilter very much looks like a deserving champion, and Slater has cooled off a tad more than I had hoped for, but personally I still expect this dynamic to also be flipped on its head come the European season. We definitely need to talk about Yuga Chukwu. After an abysmal start to his winter campaign, he has done a full 180-degree turn regarding his form and has looked like a proper, consistent frontrunner for most of the season. A fact I think I have not highlighted enough the last couple of rounds. Definitely gives some additional hope for his F3 season, following a largely underwhelming 2024, it has to be said. Then we had the story of two very different Prema rookies playing out all season long, Jack Beaton and Rashid Aldehari. Beaton has been pretty underwhelming all season, while Aldehari was surprisingly so an immediate frontrunner. But somehow Aldehari managed to throw every single win opportunity, while Beaton ended up winning the final race of the year to make a point. Sadly there wasn't a broadcast for this, so I don't know if any luck was involved, but either way, while nowhere near enough to make us forget about the other 4 rounds, it does make me cautiously optimistic that he will not be wasting the Prema seat in Fracas. And a quick shout out to Red Bull Junior and Nestor Rivera, continuing the wicked form he has shown all year long so far to take his maiden victory on the road, even if again a penalty did drop him back down to P2 behind Enzo Dellini. The Formula Winter Series had its penultimate round this weekend, and we had a pretty distinct 4-way at the front, with star rookie Fionn McLaughlin taking on the As Racing trio of Maxim Rim, Kabir Anorak and Gabriel Gomez. All 4 of them with their own moments of brilliance, including a surprisingly dominant win from the ever-improving Anorak and some wet weather excellence from McLaughlin. Nevertheless, Gabriel Gomez finds himself comfortably leading the championship with unrivaled consistency, as he has been on the podium in every single race so far. Hats off to that performance. We can't go over all of the midfield stories, as I do want to focus on NA this episode, but I do want to highlight my favorite Austrian on the grid, Simon Schranz, with a really weird weekend all around. First, causing a huge incident in race 1 before ending the weekend with his first points of the year due to a tyre gamble in drying conditions. He is very much a bit rough around the edges, even for an F4 rookie driver, it has to be said, but I do still think there is something to this guy that I can't quite put my finger on just yet. I do give him some bonus points for working with a single car team though, which we don't really know if that actually affects him negatively at all, so just a thing to keep in mind going forward. Anyway, time to go to America. Both the USF 2000s and the quicker USF Pro 2000s were super messy with more safety cars than green running, as is tradition at St. Pete. It turns out tight walls and rookie drivers is always a bit of an awkward combination, but certainly one that can entertain. Almost exclusively rookies in the USF 2000 specifically certainly added to the spicy nature of the races. The weekend was all about Liam McNeilly, continuing the form that led him to P2 in the juniors last year by winning both races in pretty comfortable fashion. Jack Jaffers also looked a lot more like his 2023 self after a slightly disappointing second season in the juniors last year. P2 in both races to firmly establish himself as a prime challenger to McNeilly. It has to be said that due to the crashy nature, these results feel anything but particularly meaningful, so don't read into them too much just yet. Just to shout out a couple more guys. Caleb Gaffrarar, a name that once again is horrible to pronounce for me, but he has had a pretty excellent debut in terms of overall performance, even if he did find the wall in the first race. Certainly looked like a future race winner to me, quite the debut in its own right. And in a similar vein, karting graduate Sebastian Garzon, obviously I will focus a bit on him, watching all that US karting has to be worth for something. He also had a solid weekend all around, especially when just looking at raw speed. Overall, the entire field has lots of improvement to do, so do expect these dynamics to change a couple times over the year. And in the USF Pro 2000s, the top of the field looked more or less how I expected it, with karting star Alessandro Tullio and highly anticipated Max Garcia, the class of the field this weekend, and young Maxi Taylor also very much hitting the ground running. Clearly a lot of talent at the sharp end of this grid. Yes, Tullio made a costly error in the second race, but again his pace was undeniable. Then we had a sweet redemption arc for Mac Clark, a talented young guy, but just could not string together a season last year whatsoever, with way too many incidents and issues across the year. Very good to see him firmly at the front this weekend, and I do hope this time he can actually sustain it over a full season. And last but not least, a shout out for a friend of the show, Titus Sherlock. If you want to hear directly from someone in American Junior Formula Racing, I've had the opportunity to chat with him last year, which you can find up here somewhere. Unfortunately, this weekend for him serves as a crucial reminder for us just how little it can take to ruin an entire weekend. An error in quali had him starting at the back, resulting in a proper eye-racing moment with him getting caught up in an accident ahead in the first race, and then to add insult to injury, if I remember correctly, a loose wire after the required rebuild caused him to immediately go down a lap before the second race even started. So if you ever need a reason to not overreact to a single bad weekend of your favorite driver, then just remember this. IndyNXT really stole the headlines in St. Pete for me. I've teased it in the intro. Dennis Hauger did not just win on debut, but utterly dominated the entire weekend. He hit the ground running in practice and only improved from there, setting a new lap record along the way while leading every single lap of the race for his maiden victory. He has been the favourite for this title ever since he's been announced for the ride. Drivers of his caliber have walked straight into IndyCar in the past, but even then I expected Kyle Collette to put up a fight at least in the first couple rounds with the experience advantage he's got. With a performance like this, I am ready to write off the championship and just focus on the battle for P2 going forward. Feel free to agree or disagree with that down in the comments. Lockie Hughes and Miles Rowe joined Collette as the rest of the front-running group. Fantastic debut from Hughes especially, although not really a big surprise there. Notably, my boy Callum Edge was a bit more anonymous than I had hoped for. if he wants to be anywhere near this front group of the championship, then he really needs to sort out the consistency issues he has been having last year. Sophia Flörsch has also arrived in the US, but could not exceed my admittedly pretty low expectations for her. I've got the utmost respect for her wish to be judged as a racing driver and not as a female racing driver, which is a brilliant attitude to have, but unfortunately this means that running around at the back of the midfield is simply not good enough for anything but criticism. It was her first event, sure, and I do expect her to pick it up a bit over the season, of course, but she will be fighting an uphill battle all year long. Much like with Jamie Chadwick before, I think this program really only makes sense if it is planned as a 2-year thing anyway. And a rare negative shout out. I've said I'm not too big a fan of seeing Tommy Smith on this grid, but I largely said this because he seems like a waste of a decent seat. I did not anticipate him wiping out 3 cars before even reaching turn 1 of the first lap, so that is a new low point in his career, although obviously something a little exaggerated. And finally, to the big show in IndyCar, where we've got to witness a Chip Ganassi Racing masterclass, particularly from superstar and reigning champion Alex Palou, with a trademark slow climb through the pack to somehow make it look easy to win from the 5th row. He and Dixon may be boring for some of you in the way they win races, but if you ask me, this is pure executional brilliance, and I could watch that shit every single day of the week, even if it doesn't need much flash from the drivers. As always, if we have winners, we gotta have losers, and I don't even want to call out the slight fumble by Team Penske. They still very much looked like the other top team we know and love. Colton Herta got his favourite treatment with not 1 but 2 messed up pit stops while fighting at the front, while Pato O'Ward ruined his weekend in qualifying, resulting in a pretty abysmal weekend for McLaren all around. Definitely the 2 big players that need to bounce back quickly if they want to have any chance of this title this year round. Naturally, one of my biggest interests this year is the new Prema IndyCar outfit, and I am very happy to report both Robert Schwartzman and in particular Callum Eilert did a solid job, and the team overall looked pretty decent enough for a debut in my opinion. Nobody expects them to be fighting for wins this year, but they did check all the boxes for a good debut for my money. And that is already it from the car racing world, but of course it wouldn't be Race Week Review without our quick weekly karting report. Champions of the Future Academy has kicked off in Portimao as the first Tier 2 championship we'll have a look at this year. It is the karting pendant to the F1 Academy, but crucially with guaranteed seats for girls, but mixed gender competition. Not the most competitive series by any means, but in my opinion, a fantastic initiative. The Minis had Nicolo Perico as the absolute superstar of the weekend, replicating the sort of drives he has had in the WSK all season last year, dominating in both wet and dry, certainly a couple of drives to remember. Also a shout out to Zane Burgess and Wyn Gottschalk. They didn't come home with the results due to incidents, but they were both very competitive across the weekend as well to fly the flag for America. In the OKN Juniors, Kasper Reipol was the best kid all weekend, but my highlight was emerging French star Manny Nuvolini, not just for stealing the win in the second race, but also for just answering all English interview questions in French to the visible confusion of the interviewer. Certainly looks like a fun kid. And in the OKN Seniors, Marcus Silkunas continued what he was doing last year, but with no Luna Flucia to stop him this time around. I do want to mention that Chiara Battig was able to put up a bit of a fight and took a podium in the second race. Unfortunately, she binned it while running P2 in the wet first race. I think we're past the stage of the season where a dedicated news segment still makes sense, but in case you missed it, I wanted to point out Christian Mansell not taking part in the F2 season opener, despite it being his home race as well. I'm sure he's got a good reason, and I wish him all the very best, but man, this is another blow to an already not super duper convincing F2 grid for the 2025 season. Anyway, now it is your time to go to the comments and let me know all of your thoughts about the race week gone by, so we can get our lovely little discussion going. And otherwise, I thank you all for watching, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.